Greetings, Cyclopeans. Welcome to podcast 23, the Sci-Clops podcast with H.P. Lovecraft's The Diary of Alonzo Typer. I hope I said that one right. I think it's pronounced right.
Close enough.
My name is Dan.
I'm Tom.
And we are here with a plethora of good stuff this week. As always, we got comic books, we've got movies, we've got, the movie, but we're going to go straight into comics. Cookies, yeah, we do have cookies, but we ate them all, but we got Tootsie Rolls laying around here. Tom's going to go straight into comics here.
Okay, I have 2 from DC, 1 from Marvel, and 1 from Dynamite this week. All right, I'll start with Marvel. The second issue of Bullseye came out. This is the number 2 of 5 for the Bullseye miniseries. Bullseye finds himself down in Colombia looking to kill the head of a cartel and actually rescue the son of another cartel. Oh, well, I guess it would be the mob up in New York City, whose son has been kidnapped down in Colombia. Wow. Marvel usually, it's a family-friendly comic company, yes, so is DC. But, they have a parental advisory on this one, and man, is it needed. Bullseye is just mowing people down like a lawnmower going over grass. Yep. He's just, heads popping off, fingers cutting off. He's brutal. And it's really shocking to see, like, a mainstream Marvel title be, like, outside of, The Punisher, being this brutally violent. And it's great, because that's who Bullseye is. He's a sadistic hitman who goes around killing people, But it's great. It's a fun way to reestablish Bullseye to the current comic readers, because longtime fans know who Bullseye is. He's got the huge history with Daredevil and all that. But wow, this is like over the top violent. I don't even think covers how gruesome this is, and it's great. He's clearly decided to go with I'm gonna be so loud and obnoxiously violent and slaughter all this guy's dudes that he's gonna have to come find me instead of me hunting him down. And that's pretty much what he spends the entire issue doing.
Awesome.
There's a new wrinkle thrown in here in that someone else outside of the cartel is looking for Bullseye for reasons of their own. And we don't know exactly why or who this is. It's a new character. So it throws another nice little wrinkle in here, and it's not just straight up Bullseye just slaughtering through minions for the entire issue. Although I would read that anyway because it's fun. So the story progresses a little bit here. We get to see Bullseye really go full tilt mass murderer, and it's fun. 3 issues to go, and I'm looking forward to it. So we hop over here on the other side of the fence, and I have Batman and Superman this week. And I'm going to start with Batman number 18, the second installment in the I Am Bane storyline. This picks up after the most recent Batman storyline, which was I Am Suicide, where Batman goes to Bane's home, the prison Peña Duro, and steals the Psycho Pirate from him for help, because Batman needs him. And you knew that Batman kicks in this guy's front door, embarrasses him in front of his guys, and then leaves. Bane's not going to take that laying down. And Bane does exactly what you'd expect him to do. He goes back to Gotham City and is intent on ending this with Batman once and for all. And it's good because a couple podcasts ago I talked about the Bane Conquest miniseries they're going to be doing. And they're clearly really positioning Bane here as a legitimate threat to Batman again. Right. He spends most of the issue knocking him around like a rag doll. Yeah. And it's really good. It's nice because Bane wasn't really involved in the New 52 all that much. He popped up as like a cameo here or an appearance there, but never really as part of a big, deep storyline. And Bane's one of my favorite Batman villains of all time. So it's nice to really see him get this kind of big exposure and its own 12-issue series coming out fairly soon. So this is great. It goes a long way to reestablish that not every Batman villain is like this kind of gimmick like Two-Face or Joker or the Riddler. And even Bane says that himself in the comic. I don't know who you think you're talking to, but I'm not the Riddler, I'm not Penguin, I am Bane, as the storyline suggests. Great stuff here. And like I said, just really reestablishes Bane as a legitimately just like threat to Batman himself physically, as opposed to just being, what's Bane going to do next. So I like where they're going with this. Obviously I don't think it's going to end too well for Bane. Fights with Batman never really do end well for anybody except Batman. Yep. But I like what they're doing. And now on to the other big DC here. Well, one of the Trinity. Superman. Now, like I said last podcast, they're really starting to dig into the meat of the mystery of who is this Clark Kent that appeared out of nowhere, who appears to be totally normally human, no powers, no nothing, but there's just inconsistencies with, his own story and things in his life, and he's just this giant mystery that no one can seem to unravel. And they're really starting to... This is the main storyline now, where this Clark clearly has something up with him. He's nefarious for some reason or another. We don't know if he's a villain himself or if he's the puppet of someone else, but clearly something is up with this guy, and it really comes to the forefront in this issue, where he shows up one day at the house of Lois Clark and their son John and leaves them an anniversary gift. But the gift is not all it seems, and something happens to their son. Clark, the duplicate Clark, clearly either has powers or knows somebody who does, and they did something to John.
They give him like a kryptonite pixie stick or something.
Yeah. And Superman...
Hey, this doesn't taste so good.
Superman basically says, okay, we've been beating around the bush with this guy long enough. I'm going to find out what's going on, and I'm going to get some answers. And this one is interesting because it's going to be occurring... This storyline is going to be occurring in both Superman and Action Comics at the same time, so they're really going to move it along at a quick pace instead of just, I mean, it's bi-weekly anyway, so it's not that long in between issues, but now we're going to be doing it every week. This storyline is going to progress. And it's good because... Superman is really great for those high action, like crazy, larger than life battles. Yeah. But it's nice to see them really kind of dig into like a more closer to home kind of mystery angle with him. And he's a reporter. That's his day job. So it's digging into the Clark Kent aspect of his life too, in addition to just him being Superman. So I really can't say enough good things about the DC Rebirth line. And these two comics were just further proof that they've really hitting it on all cylinders. On to Dynamite, which I have James Bond Black Box issue number 1. Although technically this is issue 13, because this is an ongoing series. With the James Bond comic, they do 6-issue arcs, and then they start over with a new arc. So this is issue 1 of the Black Box arc for James Bond. This comic is fantastic. It's really closer to Ian Fleming's original Bond novels in terms of tone and all that, where... you have the Connery films where he's the swashbuckling debonair, super spy. And maybe he is in the comic, but the thing they really didn't delve into all that much in the original Bond films, and they started to in like the Dalton films and the Daniel Craig films, is that, when your occupation is you're a hitman for the government, it kind of starts to weigh on you a little bit. And even though he's brash and charming on the outside, inside Bond is like this burned out, borderline alcoholic,
killer.
Psycho. Yeah. And that's really what they dug into here, and it's great, and I love it. And this arc starts off with Bond on a mission to assassinate a hitman who's been killing off British dignitaries. Mm-hmm. And the catch is, somebody kills the hitman first. And Bond chases the hitman down. Long story short, it's not who you'd expect a hitman to be. She gets away, and Bond goes to superiors and is trying to figure this out, and they tell him, who cares? The guy lined up dead, that was your mission, he's dead, who cares? Bond is a little bit reluctant to let this go because he wants to know who she was and why she was after that guy. But they give him a new mission in the meantime, where somebody has hacked into MI6 and all the British, special forces emails and repositories of information, and they want him to find whoever did it, get the data back or erase it, and then kill everybody involved in that.
Kill everybody involved.
Yeah. And that's what I really like, because in the Bond movies it would be kill the guy running the operation, but no, here they're like, kill everyone.
Kill them all.
Kill everybody who was involved in this hack, get them all dead, and so they send Bond off to Shinjuku, Japan. I think it's a district in Tokyo, and they want him to figure out, like I said, who did this and
freaking
get them all.
Awesome.
And this is obviously issue 1, so it's going to be a while before he figures everything out. But I like
exciting.
It's really good. The Bond comic, I cannot rave about it enough. And Felix Leiter, they're doing a miniseries on Bond's CIA buddy, which is actually also really good. So everything.
Steal this from you and read it.
Yeah, everything. I have the first 12 upstairs if you want to read them too.
Yeah, this is
and that's all I got for comic reviews. Okay. I do have some comic news related things.
Let's do some news.
This is fun. Clue. The board game is going to be getting a comic in June. And I think I'm actually going to read that. IDW is going to be doing it. It's silly, but it sounds like it could be a lot of fun. It's an updated take on the board game. Obviously, it's not like set in the 1920s. I saw that go by. I'm like, I don't want to. Oh, it's going to be silly. I loved the Clue movie with Tim Curry. I thought it was hilarious.
I played the board game many times.
Still cracks me up. So I will definitely be checking that out when it hits this June. I think that could be a lot of fun.
That is cool.
And that's actually all I got for the comic news.
Nothing else in the news?
I got movies and TV though next on deck.
Let's do movies and TV. Did you read? You didn't read American Gods, did you?
I did.
Okay, I read that this time. This is one of the books I read, and I wanted a quick
go for
interject in there and just see what you thought. What did you like it? Or
I did. I think I was along the lines you did. I thought it was overall very good, but it got a little wandery in parts.
Absolutely, and that's what I thought. I was reading it. In the first half, I was like really hooked. I was like, this is incredible. It's going really fast, and one of the things that Gaiman, I hope I'm saying this right, Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman kept doing is he kept dropping in, which was interesting. He would be doing the story, and if you're not familiar with it, in a summary, the old gods? The old gods exist. All those old gods.
Odin, Zeus.
Yeah. There's all these other. There's tons and tons and tons of gods. Anytime somebody put something together and began to worship it, a god was formed. Am I correct on that?
Yep.
That sounds good.
For real.
And that god would stay around until it was forgotten or wiped out or killed by another god, I think. And so they weren't really immortal, but they really weren't. It was kind of weird.
They're just beings of power.
Creation.
Yeah.
And what's happened is that with the onset of, well, I guess the only way I can say is the rise of capitalism and the rise of modern day technology and society.
TV, internet,
technology,
phones,
these new gods, because in a sense, everybody's worshiping TV and worshiping money and worshiping media. Media is one of the gods who's going to be Scully from X-Files.
Crispin Glover's in there too.
Crispin Glover,
the God of the World, which
plays Scully. Good Lord,
Gillian Anderson.
Good Lord, I'm sorry, I just. Well, anyway.
Nerd cred. Don't know
God.
X-Files.
I'm going to get a black mark on my nerd cred for that one. I knew that. I just watched the X-Files. Just good Lord. So, she's going to be Media. But anyway, the new gods don't like the old gods, and somebody's systematically trying to kill them off. And it's a weird book because you've got they talk about this guy appears he's in jail. He gets let out of jail. Shadow. And Shadow he discovers that on his way back to see his wife, has been killed in a car accident, and so he gets back to where he's her funeral, and he meets this guy, and it turns out that it's pretty obvious it's one of the gods, and the guy is recruiting him as a driver, kind of like a limo driver, or a right-hand man, or like a servant of all kind of thing, and it's very interesting because Shadow never questions this really. He's this guy who just. Whatever happens, he just kind of accepts it and rolls with it. And it's really odd the way you would think, and weird things are happening. I mean, there's strange things happening.
Definitely not it's very clear there's something this guy is
the biggest thing is that his wife reappears and starts having a conversation with him, and they're talking back and forth, and she's clearly there. She's not a ghost. She's ill. She's alive again. She's dead and alive. And he's just talking away to her and blah, blah. And then he's just kind of taking it in, in stride, I've kind of gotten out of jail after 3 years, and my wife has been killed, and she's back, and we see each other once in a while when she decides to appear, and I got these gods around, and these strange things are happening, and I talk to animals, and I see things in other dimensions. I'm like, whoa. And so you're kind of like, okay, and that's really cool, and you're going and then in the meanwhile, Neil Gaiman will put in these little mini stories
about a god
about a god.
Yeah. I actually like those.
I loved them. I thought they were kind of cool, but they don't really link up with this story. So it's kind of odd. If you run into one of these stories, I'm going to give something away here. Most of the time, it's not going to link up. Most of the time.
Yeah.
And I thought the coolest one. There's one which I don't want to give too much away, but there's one where the original settlers are coming over from Asia into North America across the land bridge.
Yeah.
And they bring a god with them,
and
the god is leading them across. And it's a wicked cool little story. And it's kind of like how the god came about, how the god is doing stuff with him, and how the god, whatever. I don't want to go any farther. So anyway, it's not a bad book. I found that I was thinking about it after I put it down, but it like Tom said, it tends to wander.
Yeah.
The big thing was there's a storm coming. There's a storm coming. And the one god who picked up Shadow is recruiting all the other gods for a fight, and he knows that the technology gods are going to come after him hard and try to kill them all and take over. And so he's trying to get everybody back online for a fight, and a lot of them don't want to do it, and blah, blah, blah. Well, this storm, they keep saying there's a storm coming, and the storm, well, I don't know if it really happens or not. It kind of happens, and it doesn't happen, and but there is a very interesting plot twist. Pardon me. Plot twist within a plot twist within a plot twist. So
there was a couple big reveals there at the end that were really cool.
Yeah, the reveals at the end were like, whoa, I didn't see that coming.
The cool thing is, certain characters, as you go throughout the book, turn out to be gods or variations thereof, and their clues are always there in the characters' appearances and their names and things like that. And then you're like trying to think like, okay, who would this be? And then when it gets revealed that there's someone, and you're like, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, and certain characters turn out to be completely what you don't think they are, or
Oh, they explain that later and it's great.
But I don't want to give too much away. Yeah. It's a good book. It's not long, but
it's good. It's definitely a book worth checking out if you can find it.
Well, what's going to be interesting to see how they do the series. And it's.
Well, I think with the series, they have a lot of opportunity to expand on stuff in the book and kind of maybe tighten the focus a little bit.
They could do prequels for miles.
Oh, they could. There's endless things
they
you can do.
Decide they want to go
just that
back,
idea,
or even forward. They can go forward on this thing too. And it's going to be where's it coming out on Netflix?
No, it's actually a network.
Is it network? I can't remember who it is, but
maybe ABC.
If you Google it,
it'll pop up.
We'll try to put something up with a link. But anyway, I just want to put that out there. If you're looking for a decent book to read, it's not great, it's not bad, but it's going to be a series, and you might really like it. A lot of people really, really liked it, and Tom and we liked it. And it was a little confusing.
Could have been better, but I mean, I've definitely read way worse.
Yeah. So I really have no problem. So I would recommend it. I'll give it a recommendation. So that was one of my 52 books in 52 weeks, and I got a whole bunch more coming up next week. So I'm slowly getting caught up again. So you want to talk about movies?
Yeah, I think we should obviously kick off with the big one. We saw
Logan.
The big one
first? Yeah, we went to Logan. Holy moly!
It was alright. It was great.
It wasn't bad, but.
I didn't like the part where Iron Man showed up.
I don't like Marvel too. No, anyway. You go.
17 years. That is how long Hugh Jackman has been playing Wolverine, since the original X-Men movie in 2000.
Wow.
And I remember when you guys took me to that, and how awesome that movie was. The first.
You remember the audience cheering?
Twice during that movie, I think it happened.
That scene where he cuts the shotgun in half, and the people go crazy, and it's
rare legitimate clapping, in theater. That was great. But so 17 years, he's been in every single X-Men movie except for Deadpool, which some people don't really count that as an X-Men movie because
that's not.
He's an X-Men related character. I'll give you that, but I don't count it as an X-Men movie.
You couldn't put him in Deadpool back then because it would have dominated the Deadpool movie. Yeah, and Deadpool's big enough as it is.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's a separate story.
But so every single X-Men movie he's at least appeared in for a cameo, and he is Wolverine.
Yeah.
Inevitably he's going to be recast.
Wolverine does a good job of playing Hugh Jackman.
But let's get into the actual movie itself. It picks up the years 2029.
Yeah.
Wolverine has gotten pretty worse for wear. He's aged considerably.
Yeah.
He's not doing so hot. His healing factor isn't up to snuff like it used to be. He's working as a limo driver.
The people he's driving around are like so skeevy. It's you're just like, look, how did you come to this?
He winds up. He's on the. I think what is it? The.
It's like he's in
Texas, New Mexico.
Where is he?
Texas-Mexico border.
Yeah,
he's on one state. It's bordering Mexico.
One somewhat. Yeah, and they said they filmed it in New Mexico, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be in New Mexico or not. But he's in Vegas a bunch of times.
He's taking care of Professor X, who something has happened to.
Yeah.
He's clearly not himself.
He's a mess. Everybody's a mess.
Everybody's a mess.
Just everybody's a mess.
Age has caught up with Professor X in a really bad way.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a broken transmitter. He's receiving random thoughts from everywhere, and he's just all over the place. Which I think was actually a really cool idea, and it's one that James Mangold said he wanted to touch on. What happens to mutants' powers as they age? Because as you age, your body begins to fail you, so naturally, a mutant's powers would start to do that too. Wolverine's healing factor is going. Professor X's mind is going.
Yep.
And the introduction, also caretaking Professor X, is the mutant Caliban, played by Stephen Merchant. I thought Caliban was an interesting choice for this movie because he's definitely a character X-Men comic fans certainly know, but apart from his appearance in the previous X-Men movie Apocalypse, I don't think the casual fan really knows who Caliban is or what he does. Yeah. But I thought Stephen Merchant was fantastic as Caliban. So without getting into too much detail, somebody comes to Logan with a proposition. They need his help for something. He tells them, sorry, not that guy anymore. Figure it out yourself. But typical Wolverine, it just spirals out of control.
Yep.
The bad guys find him, and it becomes just basically Logan's rush in
You know,
attempt to
we'll
get
say-
Professor
we'll
X
just-
and get out of there.
We'll just do spoilers here and just warn you.
wanna do
We're
spoilers?
going to do a whole bunch
Okay.
of spoilers because there's no other way to do this without doing the
So,
spoilers.
sorry, skip ahead for a while, but
Yeah.
we're going to
If
get
you
into
don't
it.
want to, we'll look down at the
Wolverine's
bottom.
really an alien.
No, but
The woman who's come to Logan for help is smuggling Laura X-23 out of the country to Canada, and Logan doesn't know what she's smuggling, but he tells her, "Not interested, not my problem. Figure it out yourself." The bad guy, what's his name? Donald Pierce in the movie. Donald Pierce says, "We know she found you. All we want is to find her and get what's ours back." He's like, "I don't know, can't help you," but now he's in panic mode. You know, the bad guys found him, and he just wants to get Professor X and get out of Dodge. Mm-hmm. And he goes back to...
Which, by the way, he's had a plan to do. Buying
Yes.
a boat and sailing away. So.
He gets back to Mexico. He finds Professor X in Caliban, and he plans to just take one more big high-paying job, which he doesn't know is the woman, and then they're going to get out of here, get the boat, and leave. He shows up to one of his pickups. It's the woman again. He's he's pissed at this one. He's like, "Look, I already told you I don't want your help." She says, "I'll pay you $50,000. You just get us to these coordinates." And that's enough money for him to get the boat and get out of here. So hesitantly, he accepts. He goes to Professor X, and who is lucid finally again, tells him what's going to happen. He'll be back, and everything will be fine. Goes back to get the woman. She's dead. Laura's missing. Now he's like really in panic mode because he's like, how long before this blows back on me? And of course it does.
It's gonna blow back on you,
yeah, because he's
on
Wolverine. So he goes back to get Professor X and says, "We're just gonna have to leave, without the plan. We're just gonna get out of here." Laura has smuggled herself in his limo, and the bad guys follow her there.
Yep.
This is where things really pick up.
Things really go to pieces. Too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
they kick the crap out of Logan
Yeah.
when they show up because his healing factor is not what he used to be. He's, drinking way more than he should be.
Yeah.
He's a mess. So they just beat the snot out of him, and he's all pinned down. You're like, well, great. Who's gonna save the girl now?
Yeah.
And then one of the best parts is that he said Donald Pierce sends 3 men in to get her.
Yeah.
And you hear screams and gunfire, and she walks out. And she rolls one of the guy's heads right at his feet.
That scene where she comes out in the commercial with the don't show, she's carrying a head in her hand. This thing is grisly. This movie is a grisly.
Oh man, they said they were gonna go full on R with it, and they really did.
And they open up with this kind of grizzle too. It's a bloodbath, and it's just blood all over the place. And
it's everything a Wolverine fight in the comics is. He's sticking claws in people's heads, and But so she rolls the head to the guy. And she takes off and he sends all the guys after her. And she is just mowing through these guys. She's ripping them to shreds.
She's X-23.
It's great. This 12-year-old girl, Daphne Keane, is like, oh my god, she's terrifying. She's slicing arteries and killing people, and it just devolves into this whole thing.
Blood spraying all over the place.
And then basically the rest of the movie is that they're on the run.
Yeah,
he gets her in the car with Professor X. Something happens to Caliban, and he's got his own side plot through the whole movie.
Yep.
But they take off, and the rest of the movie is them on the run from what's the company? Transigen.
From Transigen. And the bad guy is a nasty, nasty bad guy.
Boyd Holbrook was great as Donald Pierce. You're like, I cannot wait until someone gets you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were just waiting for someone to kill him. And he did such a good job of playing a bad guy that you were so, you're so excited that someone's going to kill him soon. And hopefully it's going to be really awful. So what did you thought overall of the movie?
I loved it. I thought this was a swan song to end all swan songs for Wolverine.
Yeah.
He talked earlier, and it's especially when that second Wolverine solo movie was coming out, about how he knows that fans really do want to see a big R-rated solo Wolverine movie where he's just mowing people down. He goes, I don't know if we're ever going to do that because these are kind of meant for the general consumer audience. But I think Hugh Jackman knew, I'm done. Yeah. This is my last one. I'm really gonna hit it hard and do the big, R-rated finale that everyone's been waiting for, and it's really was fantastic. I mean, it wasn't like obscene gore.
No, it's not gore. We said gore.
Yeah,
it's not gore. It's
definitely gorier than
It's a fight with blood spraying all over.
Brutal
the place.
and vicious and everything a Wolverine fight should be.
Yeah.
And but it never gets to a point where you're like, oh my god,
yeah,
come
it's
on.
not like intestines blowing out.
Yeah.
but our brains going all over.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people's brains get blown out on walls, but
it was great. Hugh Jackman really nailed this thing with Logan, where he's done.
Yeah,
he's hit the end of his rope. All he wants to do is ride off into the sunset.
And get drunk too,
and forget this.
He's alcoholic, and
yeah,
everybody in this movie is popping pills and booze. They're all like junkies and alcoholics.
And Professor X, I think, was Patrick Stewart also was fantastic performance.
Absolutely
of Professor
incredible.
X.
Didn't he remind? He's just a frail
old man.
And how did you play that? So well?
And like I said, stuff is very wrong with Professor X in this movie.
Yeah,
his powers are out of control. He needs medication to keep himself in check. He has seizures, which lead to his powers blasting uncontrollably and affecting everybody around him.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of the best fight scenes, is when he has that seizure and everyone's paralyzed,
yeah,
and Wolverine's not, and he's clawing his way to Professor X, and he's stabbing bad guys as they're paralyzed.
Yeah, frozen.
And it's
great.
Amazing.
It's an incredible scene, and it's just.
And the best, my favorite one was the guy he's about to stab, and you can see the guy's paralyzed, but his eyes are following Logan, and you're like, oh, you totally know what's coming.
The guy's like, he's stuck, and you see the eyes slowly move over, and the claws are coming down.
And Wolverine's looking him right in the face as he's about to kill. Yeah,
because it's like usually you see that with like the monster coming, but this time the monster is Wolverine.
Wolverine coming down the
wall. He's actually
clawing, sticking the claws through the wall. He's keeping himself up.
Yeah, and because the seizure that Professor X is having is so bad, and everybody in the whole 10-block radius is getting hit or whatever it is.
Yeah, the whole casino and everything. They're slightly outside.
It's a total mess, and it's so amazing to watch. You wonder what the kill count was on this movie.
Gotta be at least 100.
Incredible kill count.
Yeah.
I'd like to have somebody's going to do that. One of the big sites are going to do a kill count on this movie, because this thing opens up. If you just want to throw this up.
Oh yeah, the Cholo fight scene.
Kill count. And I wanted to say it opens up with a fight that's as good as that. Remember that first X-Men where he's in the cage and they're fighting in the bar and everybody's going crazy. This is a great opening fight scene, and it wastes no time at all. I mean, it's like within seconds you're already in trouble in the opening. Yep. So anyway, keep going.
And so it's Wolverine on this. Basically, it's a road trip with them trying to get to these coordinates, and Wolverine slowly coming to grips with the fact that once they put two and two together, that Laura is his daughter, basically.
Yeah. They finally tell him at one point that she.
He figures out on the phone video.
Yeah.
That they took his DNA from the Weapon X days and they combined it with a woman's DNA, and she gave birth to Laura. Yeah. And she has all of his powers. She's got the claws, the healing factor. She's even got the metal.
The foot claw that we were talking about.
The foot claw was awesome.
The foot claw is incredible.
And Logan clearly doesn't want to be involved in her life because, as he even says flat out in the movie, everybody who gets close to me dies a horrible death.
Yeah. Bad things
happen to people I care about.
And in this movie, they leave a trail of bodies.
Trail of bodies from literally one end of the country.
One end of the country to the other. Literally from the south to the north. Everybody who gets near them, bad things happen. They are just trouble incarnate. And so,
as I said, I thought this movie was fantastic. Yeah. Everyone's performance was stellar. Yeah. Caliban, Daphne Keane as X-23, Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Hugh Jackman was fantastic.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I wasn't a big fan of. The evil scientist guy who shows up, who is the creator. It felt like he was just there to give some exposition-y background, and then he's gone. He didn't really do much.
Care. I kind of dug what he was, though. He was kind of like the guy in the back.
Making everything. Which is fun, but I will admit his death scene was awesome. It just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's interesting death scene for him. They have it's not Dokken, by the way. We thought
in
the week before.
The other big thing was that I talked about earlier, my speculation in the trailer was when Wolverine blocks those claws coming down, that they were Dokken. But as it turns out, the Weapon X program has continued in one form or another, and Laura being X-23... X-24 is the next step, which turns out to be a clone of Wolverine.
Yeah.
And it's a full-on clone. It's got all of his powers. It's got the metal claws. It's got the metal skeleton and everything, except it's a mindless killing machine.
Like a mindless, dumb killing machine,
It was great because it was one of the best. This is a big spoiler. I'm sorry for this one, but I gotta say it because it was my favorite scene in the movie. Or one of them. The Wolverine clone, the X-24, kills Professor X.
Yeah.
And as it's kidnapping Laura, Wolverine runs in to find Professor X with, the claw wounds in his chest. and he's carrying him down the stairs, and almost under his breath, I almost didn't hear him say it, he's running Professor X to the truck, and he goes, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me."
Yep.
You know, like,
It wasn't me.
and it's like everybody he loves. He killed Professor X, basically, even though he's muttering to
Professor X thought it might be him, but
yeah.
Incredible to watch.
And it was fantastic. And it's some great fight scenes.
Yeah, we could go on
with
for
Wolverine on Wolverine. Brutal fight scenes.
A long time.
But one of the things that Laura was really hoping for is that she was going to run into her friends who also escaped.
Yeah.
And Wolverine keeps telling her, odds are they're gone. They got caught. And then
there's a whole bunch of kids escaped.
Yeah, a whole bunch of kids like Laura who were
new mutants.
New mutants.
There's a whole bunch of new mutants.
And late in the movie, they get to the rendezvous point, and he's like, "See, nothing here." But then there's a tower up there, and lo and behold, all the kids.
Which is very interesting because it's going to open up a possibility
a lot of stuff
new
they could do.
mutants. And they're later on.
And that,
by the way, they survived.
Yeah,
they survived.
That big final fight with Logan and the rest of the Reavers in the woods, I thought was perfect.
A great fight.
He takes basically a super steroid essentially, and basically turns himself back into Wolverine in his prime.
Yeah.
And that was really brutal, and it was
fight.
great to watch him just mow through all those guys. And the big ending, I was wondering what they were going to do. Even Logan is an immortal, and he doesn't make it out.
Yeah, and it was brilliant. And there's, I want to throw a couple things in there. Well, you saw it?
Oh yeah, go for it.
For me, the movie, it opens up with an incredible opening. It's one of those fight scenes it starts out with, and it's not a waste of time. It's like a James Bond style, old X-Men style opening fight where he comes right in and you got the scene and bang, we're off and running, and it's a great fight scene. And the end is, there's something that happens in the end which is just heart-wrenching, and it's like, wow, there's this one scene in the very, very end. And
I know what you're talking about, yep.
And it's incredible, whoever thought that up. It's like, what a simple scene, and it totally closes the door on the series, and it's great the way they do that.
Well, it closes the door on Jackman.
Well, it closes, I mean, it closes the door on this kind of, this chapters, these chapters, and it's excellent. And I would like to say, and I'm going to go all the way out on a limb here, and I've been saying this to everybody, that this thing is worthy of an Academy Award or 2 or 3 or 4.
And I think when it comes to Academy Awards, there's such a stigma on comic book movies. They're just mindless entertainment for the man. And yes, there are certainly some comic movies that are just big popcorn, nom movies. Yeah. And there's been other movies that are comic book movies that have been fantastic. And I was actually very happy to see when they posthumously awarded that Academy Award to Heath Ledger for the Joker. Because he absolutely deserved it. He destroyed that performance. He was so good.
Yeah, he was the Joker.
Yeah. But I think, like I said, there's this stigma that, it's a comic movie, we can't take it seriously as cinema.
The irony on that is that I have put that out there, and I've seen, not even just me, other people must be saying it, because a lot of the fan base is upset because they think that what's coming out is that, well, now that it's not really a comic book movie, it's finally getting some respect, so they're taking our comic book thing away. And I'm like, no, they're not. They've just, it's a really, really good, dark, incredibly dark movie. There is no bright spot.
It's a Wolverine story.
This is an incredibly dark movie, incredibly dark, with almost no good ending, and nothing good is going to come out of this movie except one bright spot in the very end.
Yep.
But it's a great dark movie that just happens to have included with it, or I don't know if it's a comic book movie built around a great dark story or a great dark story built around a comic book movie, but it doesn't matter. Don't get wrapped up in that. Just know that it's an excellent movie.
It was faithful to the source material. This was a Wolverine movie.
Faithful to source material.
It was perfect.
Yeah, and there's so many things to rave about in this movie. I called it it was like the Road for comic book movies. If you ever saw The Road, which is one of the most depressing movies I've ever seen. And this thing, like, you're in this movie watching it, and you're just getting, like, lower and lower in the seat, like, watching this going, holy moly, is this thing depressing. And it's depressing. And it's really, really down and dark. And even the filming was done, like, everything sunsets and dark and oranges.
Night,
everything, the sun going down.
This was visually very striking movie, too.
Grays and blacks. And even later in the woods, when they're in the woods, it's in the dark, it's in shadow. There are a couple bright spots, but most of the time...
highway scene, but that's about it.
Yeah, or up on the mountain, but most of the time it's dark and it's shadowy, and there's just depression, or if there's a bright spot, it's only there to get it dark in a few more minutes, and it's coming. It's going to be awful. And for me, that was the part of the movie that was just great, because it really got to you. And the fact that you were like so depressed because something happened to everybody. I mean, at one point, even Professor X is he's emotionally, because he goes,
you didn't tell me what I did.
I don't know what he says, I certainly don't deserve, any kind of joy or whatever, because of what happened in Westchester. And like, what happened in Westchester? We never find out. Something terrible happened, and he was involved, and it must have caused it. And so there's a lot of regret, and it's a bunch of old, lost, harassed, on the run X-Men.
Yeah.
And they're sick, and they're trying to survive in this new world that somehow, we know later, we find out how some of the X-Men died, but we don't know how they got rid of them, but we don't know the whole story. So for me, the awards would go immediately to, the cinematography in this thing is fantastic for me. I loved it. I think Jackman should get an award. I think Professor X, what's his name, should get an award.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart should get an award. I'm never good with names. There should be 4 awards given out. X-23, what's her name?
Daphne Keane.
Daphne Keane. She should get one. She's amazing. She doesn't speak for the first half of this whole movie.
First 2/3.
2/3. She doesn't speak at all. And when she does this thing. The first time she speaks, it blows you away. Like, whoa! And she does this really cool thing that she does. And it's like, whoa, that's really neat. And she was, for a 12-year-old kid, and I think her first major movie, she should be getting an award. And also Caliban should be getting an award. And that's it. Now, I did like the other characters. Don't get me wrong. There were some other great characters in here, but they weren't, the 4. For me, these 4 were this movie. Even though Caliban didn't have that huge of a role, he was like really heavy in that.
Caliban wasn't the biggest screen time role.
No, not screen time, but heavy duty.
He was
role.
Stephen Merchant.
Absolutely critical.
And the funny thing is, Stephen Merchant is a comedian.
Yeah.
In England,
yeah.
He's done a lot of funny roles, and he was great. Caliban, clearly, again, the really good thing they did about this movie is it's been decades, since the last X-Men movie, but everybody in this movie has clearly done things in the past they are not at all proud of. Professor X has that incident in Westchester, which we don't ever really find out about, and Caliban, they basically allude, was helping the government wrangle up mutants.
Yeah.
And it looks like he finally just couldn't do it anymore and decided to try to change his ways, and so everybody's kind of running from something from their past, and Caliban's been trying to make up for that.
Yeah, and they're all depressed and miserable, and the interchange with these guys is amazing. Watch them talk back and forth. There's scenes where, like, especially like even Hugh Jackman and back to over to Caliban, and they're Wolverine and Caliban, Caliban and a little bit, not Professor X, Wolverine and Caliban. Professor X and Wolverine, unbelievable. There's scenes in there where they're going back and forth, and just you're seeing Patrick Stewart do things you never thought you'd see Patrick Stewart, and especially when they're cursing each other out.
Yeah.
They're like dropping F-bombs at each other, and they're like, it's like watching a couple old men swear at each other in a car, and it's like, whoa, I never thought I'd see this. And they're F you, and well, you're an F in this, and well, screw this, you screw that up, and they're screaming back and forth, and you're like, holy moly, how far have things fallen for these? Well, we know they've fallen really bad.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of movie. It was just an amazing movie, amazing acting, amazing setting, amazing characters. I can't wait to see. Now, today, the news came out that who directed it again?
James Mangold.
James Mangold. Mangold and Daphne Keane were both asked, would you do another one? And they both said yes immediately.
Well, yeah.
And so, clearly...
He said they really hoped that the introduction of X-23 would lead to a way to continue on the Wolverine franchise, so to speak.
If she continues to act like this, she's going to be doing about 10 more of these movies. She's fantastic.
And that's another great thing, is that they got her so young.
Yeah, they got her really young. So
I was wondering, when they announced that X-20... Well, they didn't announce, but they were casting a female lead for this movie.
Yeah, way back.
Everybody knew it was going to be X-23, basically. Were they going to do it like she was... Daphne Keane's age, young, or were they going to catch somebody in their their 20s or something? Or, but I think they were smart to go that young, and that way she can do these basically until she's Jackman's age.
Well, we can't rave enough about this movie, and we highly advise you go see it. And if you want to hear all these spoilers and stuff, then you know. And if you want to leave any comments, go right ahead, because I'll tell you, I'm not backing down. I'm liking this movie. I think it needs Academy Award. I have no problem with the fact. And there was somebody complaining about the adamantium thing. There's an adamantium fight. And I am of the opinion that it worked. And I don't have a problem.
I liked it.
I don't have a problem with the mechanics in here or the physics. And I think it's fine.
If you get so beholden to, I guess, small plot devices like that, that you have to at times bend the rules a little bit to make the movie better, and it did. A friend
of ours who came out of this movie, and the first thing he said was, "It was good, but there was this," and I was like, "What?
Yeah,
like come on, dude, you gotta let go of that stuff."
I admit, I had that thought for like half a second, and then I was like, "Okay, who cares?"
All I gotta say is it has to do with shooting, and if you've done it, and he said, "Well, if you've done shooting," I'm like, "I have done shooting. I do shooting all the time, and that's why it worked."
Yeah,
and I'm going to argue that this thing worked from a point of a person who's had experience shooting, and you'll see when you get there. It's adamantium bullets. We'll talk about that later. So anyway. We're gonna. I think that's
it. I got for Logan. I
go see this
enough
thing.
Raving about that. But
sorry,
yeah,
we really had to get into that.
Probably got like 15 minutes on that, but who cares? It was
we
great.
Came out of that theater exhausted. I was like, came home.
And the first thing I started thinking about after that movie was over is like, wow, there's like 8 movies they could do spinning out of this.
Well, that's you got the little kids. All the mutants get away. Every single one of them get to Canada, and so you've got the New Mutants. So there's a ton of directions. So X-23 could be leading.
X-23 could get a solo movie. You could do a new X-Men movie. Basically, with all these kids growing up,
and we don't know who survived in this.
And here's the thing. One last thing: I guess the oldest of the kids, who was leading them, Richter, was talking to somebody on a radio.
Yeah, that's right.
He was talking to somebody who said, "We'll meet you at here, such and such a place at such and such a time. Be there."
So somebody
was clearly helping these kids.
Somebody's waiting for him.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna have more and more characters coming out, and so it's gonna be really cool to see what happens with this whole thing. Now, what else happened that wasn't in the movie, but before the movie? Deadpool 2.
The Deadpool 2 teaser was hilarious.
It was pretty darn fun. Stuck in the
changing.
What do you say? Okay. Who puts these damn things in?
It starts off. You see a guy in a hoodie walking down the street. He's it's like kind of like this dark, ominous. Music playing, and you hear someone scream, "Help! Stop!" Like a mugging going on, and the headphones come out, and you see it's Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, and he goes, "Not on my watch," and he starts running, and the Superman theme starts playing. The Superman theme from the original Christopher Reeve movie.
Original one.
I started I was losing it at this point already. And he runs into a phone booth. And he starts taking off all his clothes and opens his backpack and he's putting on his Deadpool costume.
Gotta put his costume
and he's banging around the phone booth trying to get it on. You hear like the poor old guy screaming for help, like, "Won't somebody, anybody help me?" And he's finally trying to get it on, and then you hear a gunshot go off, and he finally gets out and he starts running down the street. He finds the dead guy and he goes, "Oh no, I'm sorry."
So it's typical Deadpool, like, heartless goofiness in the end. But that's going to be the next, another big major thing. That Deadpool movie's coming out, and they're still doing casting on it. That's the funny thing. Casting news is still coming out, which they had Russell Crowe they were talking about.
Yeah, Cable is a big mystery.
Nobody knows who's it. And I find it odd that they're already dropping trailers, and they haven't even cast.
Well, that wasn't a trailer so much as it was just a thing.
Maybe just a funny thing.
Yeah. Well, no, they've said it. It has nothing to do with the movie itself. It's just a fun
trailer. And
it's a teaser, basically, to get you reminding that Deadpool is.
They could throw it in there somewhere. But we'll see. They do.
That was a lot of fun, though.
So that's pretty.
Do I have anything? Oh, I do have a couple more movie things.
Okay, let's do some more.
We're out of the Logan spoilers.
Logan
You're safe.
spoilers,
If you're coming back to us now, we're not gonna.
Our next major film on deck is going to be
Aliens. Oh no, I'm sorry. Actually, no. Power Rangers.
Power Rangers for you, yep. Power Rangers, and then here we go.
I'll go see it. No, I take that back. Oh my gosh, Kong. I'm gonna go see Kong.
I'm not as excited.
I'm gonna go see Kong on the 10th. I think that'll be good. And then the 24th is Power Rangers.
Power Rangers, and then Aliens.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that.
So in movie news, it looks like Transformers is getting a spin-off movie about just Bumblebee, the Camaro guy, for those of you who aren't big Transformers fans. It's going to be directed by, apparently, Travis Knight, who did the animated film this year? Kubo and the Two Strings. It was either late last year or early this year.
Yeah. By the way, I've heard rave reviews about Kubo and the Two Strings.
I was interested in it.
In the theaters.
Yeah, I didn't go see it.
Everybody I know is going, "This is fantastic."
Yeah.
Fantastic movie.
It definitely looked interesting.
It looked really great, but I thought it was going to be a huge thing, and it bombed utterly.
But
it was
my thing here is, the Transformers franchise, I will go out on a limb and say this, is very visually and cinematically gorgeous. Mm-hmm. But the movies, I just don't like them. I find they spend way too much time on the human characters. The fights are like shaky cam galore. I can't see what is going on. I don't like them. I thought the first movie was good, and then after that they just went off the rails.
Well, it should have been, first movie should have been Transformers, or Megan Fox featuring Transformers.
Yeah.
That's basically all that was. And she even laughed at it. She says, she goes, I wasn't brought in there for my acting.
Yeah. But I don't know. I haven't even seen the last 2 Transformers movies. I can't do it. I saw 1 and 2, and that was enough.
Yeah.
But I just didn't really think that Bumblebee was a big enough character. I mean, he's, next to Optimus, I guess he's the most popular Autobot. But I just don't really see him being capable of just
his own
holding an own solo movie. Because he doesn't talk.
Yeah.
He's got the damaged vocal cords, and he speaks like he uses songs on the radio to communicate his general feelings. Yeah. And I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see.
They might be thinking they can do like Star Wars is doing and breaking off in all these, or Marvel with all these.
But see, Star Wars is breaking off into spin-off films that make a ton of sense.
Or in Marvel and DC are going into spin-offs, so they're working.
So I don't know. But in other news, we were just talking about him last podcast. Donnie Yen is going to be, it looks like, attached to star in the Sleeping Dogs movie that's coming out. Sleeping Dogs, for those of you who don't know, was a video game. Came out 2016, I believe, maybe 2015. Long story short, an undercover cop goes into the Chinese triads in Hong Kong to try to shut them, down their operations, and this whole, basically webs or of a crime and conspiracy spins out from there.
Yep.
It's interesting in that, again, it's like Bumblebee. It's like, really? Mm-hmm. This game is going to get a movie? Because it's not a video game that feels like a video game movie. This feels like it could just be like another cop drama. I don't get why they're calling it Sleeping Dogs. I guess if they're going to use the same general plot and characters, then I guess you'd have to, but I don't know. It's not like Mortal Kombat or Hitman or something.
Odd for Donnie Yen to be going into this because it doesn't sound like. I don't think he's taking a step down or just getting a check on this one.
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't really see anything that exciting about this. I'm kind of like, okay.
It could be good because I thought the game itself was fantastic.
I've never heard of it. I don't know anybody else who. Well,
it sold decent.
Another video game movie.
Video game movies by and large are usually not handled well, but this is one that lends itself to, because in stuff like Hitman, where it's a little bit heightened reality, he's this genetically modified guy, and I feel like sometimes they lean too heavy into making it a video game movie and not just a good movie.
Yeah.
And I think this is one that if they do it right, it could be a fine movie, but I just don't get why this, of all video games, is getting an adaptation.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
But I don't know.
Well, we'll see. What do we know?
Well, on to TV, which is a lot of fun stuff happening in TV to talk about. Arrow and Flash this week. No Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow is going to be on this week, but after that Camelot episode, I don't know why they took a little mini break. But Flash, we got the second part of the Gorilla City two-parter, where Grodd comes over from Earth 2 back to Earth 1 seeking his vengeance.
Cool, man.
And the best way to sum up this episode is a huge drum roll to an ultimately kind of whimper.
Really?
Yeah. It was... Grodd shows up with his army. He sends Gypsy to do as much damage to Flash and the team as she can before, they stop her.
Right.
Gypsy is out under his mind control. That's why she helped him get to Earth 1. And Barry realizes, oh crap, Grodd made it over here. We're going to have to fight him.
Got to fight Gypsy of all people, too.
And, though the Gypsy fight was like all of 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But it really was just like Grodd plotting and getting ready to attack. And like they're like figuring, oh man, what's he going to do? And all this. And then when we finally get to the big smackdown,
they march down Main Street.
They march down Main Street, and you're like, they're getting ready to attack, and it's Jesse Quick, Wally as Kid Flash, and Barry, and you're like, this is gonna be awesome. 3 speedsters fighting an army of super gorillas.
An army of super gorillas.
Yeah, and it's the Jesse and Wally go off to fight the gorillas, and Barry fights Grodd, and you're like, all right, this is starting to get good. And then Barry starts getting smacked around by Grodd, and you're like, okay, this is kind of weird. And then they bring in their backup plan, and another fight breaks out. But really, the fight was like 4 minutes.
So they blew everything on.
Yeah, and it was like Barry just running around, stopping Grodd's various distractions, basically. And it's a shame because I was really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, oh.
Oh well, they have every bad episode every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, no show.
Yeah.
I mean, barring like Frasier, which is my favorite TV show of all time.
Yeah.
No show ever escapes a couple duds a season. You know, it's bound to happen.
But they did build this one up, like, it's gonna be
and even though this wasn't the best Flash episode I've seen, it was by no means terrible. It had a lot of fun elements. We had Tom Cavanaugh interacting with Tom Cavanaugh as both versions of Harrison Wells, which was awesome. I loved it. It was great.
Really
you had mean, cynical Earth 2 Harrison Wells talking to like overly happy, peppy Earth 19 Harrison Wells.
Over-caffeinated.
Yeah, and that was great. So there was a lot of mini things in this episode that make it interesting. And the ending was great. The ending is Wally's on a food run, and he runs into Savitar. And that's how they go off the air.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that'll be fun next week.
Yeah, Savitar is back, which is a huge deal.
So, again, it wasn't bad, but it just felt like they could have done a lot more.
Yeah.
But moving on to Arrow. And Arrow is, again, I can't believe it. I say it every week. I'm sorry I sound like a broken record, but this show has really saved itself with this 5th season. This one was great in the sense of, for Oliver anyway, this was a very civilian-centric episode for him. He didn't, I don't think he actually ever put on the Green Arrow costume except for like maybe like once. It was great. The most of the time was him, and maybe he didn't even put it on, I can't remember. But it's him as Mayor Oliver Queen trying to fight an impeachment against himself. And as this is happening, Prometheus and Vigilante and all this other stuff is going down, but really the team, Wild Dog, Mr. Terrific, Diggle, have got to step up and handle that while Oliver tries to handle the political fallout of everything that's happened to him. And I thought this was great. Curtis, in particular, really started to come into his own as Mr. Terrific, and he finally invented the T-Spheres, which, as any comic fan knows, are a big part of Mr. Terrific's outfit and get-up. The Prometheus finally got revealed this week.
Cool.
And I'll admit, they swerved me. And it's funny because this is, again, spoilers here. So
yeah, you've been hanging on this for a while.
Prometheus turned out to be Adrian Chase, the DA character who was introduced this season.
Oh.
Now, when it was funny, when I first saw the character, I'm like, he might as well have a neon sign over his head. He's Prometheus.
Yeah.
And then when Vigilante debuted, I'm like, maybe he's actually not Prometheus and he's really Vigilante instead. And this week, Prometheus and Vigilante actually got into a fight. And Vigilante escapes, and Prometheus pulls the hood off, and he pulls out a cell phone, and the camera pans around, and it's Chase. And he says, it's DA Chase, I'd like to report a Vigilante sighting. So this whole time, I was right. They swerved me. I was right, and then they got me convinced he was somebody else, and then it turns out he really was Prometheus the whole time.
Good writing. Good job.
Which is funny because I've never really been a big Green Arrow comic reader, but Adrian Chase in the comics is Vigilante.
Yep.
So I didn't know that initially. So I'm like, this guy's still Prometheus. And then when they started to hint he was Vigilante, and then I researched more into the character, I'm like, he is Vigilante in the comics. So okay, that's Vigilante.
Cool.
And then they swerve you, and he turns out to be Prometheus. Now this is good because the Prometheus thing was starting to drag. In terms of the reveal.
Yeah, I even noticed that. You were talking about it. We went on for weeks on this.
I get why they didn't want to reveal it early in the season because then all the mystery is gone and you're like, okay. Yeah. But I think they held it off as long as they could, and now we know. We still got, I think, 10 episodes or so to go in the season. So this is interesting. Now the big reveal has finally happened, and Adrian Chase, who's been working really close with Oliver at City Hall, is really the guy trying to bring him down.
Yep.
And this whole time, you're like, oh, God, Oliver, he's right there. And you're trying to, there's no way you can warn the poor guy. But which does bring up another interesting question. Who is Vigilante?
Yeah.
Because this is not, in the comics, Adrian Chase is Vigilante, so it's got to be somebody new.
Yeah. Now,
the interesting thing with it, is Vigilante going to be a new character? Like, nobody we've seen before? Is he going to be, maybe a minor recurring character from before who's gotten prominent? But this was good. The team really got to shine here, and Oliver got some great character drama as Mayor Oliver West, Oliver Queen.
Yep.
It was a great episode. It delved into separating those two aspects of his life very well, and the team got to shine. They didn't feel like just these side characters to show up, and help Oliver, punch guys in the head. The only thing. And this is really a thing with Vigilante, is whenever they get into fights with Vigilante, he just seems to have, like, almost borderline magic powers.
Yeah.
Because, like, he gets hit with a bomb, and then he's over across, like, shooting at him from another direction, and then he gets hit with a second bomb, and he escapes, and you're like, dude, what is going on here?
How are you doing? But
but...
That was one of the things that turned me off to Arrow a little bit.
Yeah.
It was just the magic powers showed up in Season 2, and I was kind of like, And that was
well, no, in Season 2, it was literally he had superpowers. Slade Wilson had the Mirakuru and
No, I mean, some of the people, it wasn't him. I mean, the bad guys, average bad guys were showing up here, there, and everywhere. Like, this is getting tiring, so...
But, that's just a little minor gripe. I thought this was a very strong episode. And I really wish they'd give Michael Dorn credit as Prometheus's voice. Because I love Michael Dorn, and I think he's great. It's like when Tony Todd voiced Zoom in Season 2. Yep. Perfectly encapsulates the character. Yeah. And the poor guy doesn't even get credit. I think they give Tony Todd credit on Flash. So I'm like, what the heck, man? But... I think this is great. I think Arrow's really right in the ship, and I'm going to be interesting to see how they play this out for the next 10 episodes of Adrian Chase trying to destroy Oliver's life from within.
And that wraps up all your notes, right?
That does not, actually. I've got a few
more. Had more.
No. We have, in the Marvel TV news, the Inhumans TV show is really starting to round its cast out, because I talked earlier that they'd cast Maximus the Mad, but now it looks like they're quickly casting the rest of the royal family. We have Anson Mount, who was on the TV show Hell on Wheels on AMC. Yep. He is going to be playing Black Bolt. I hadn't seen much of Hell on Wheels, so I haven't really seen much of him as an actor. But I will say he does kind of... He has that Black Bolt vibe. He's got that, the strong, chiseled jaw, and he looks like somebody you really wouldn't want to mess with. So I think that's some good casting. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Serinda Swan is going to be playing his wife, Medusa. She was on the show Graceland, which I haven't seen any of, so I have no idea how she is as an actor, but I will definitely see how she pans out. And Ken Leung, again, hope I'm pronouncing that right, is going to be playing Karnak.
Too cool.
And I think this is going to be awesome. I think it's a really good sign that they're rounding this out with strong, some strong actors. Yeah. I have seen a few of them. It looks like they're going to take this seriously. It's not going to be like, okay, let's try and make this and see if it catches, and then if it doesn't, no skin off our nose. It really looks like they're going to go full bore Inhumans with this. Like, they're not going to try to, like, Christopher Nolan Dark Knight it and make it more realistic. They're really going with it, because there's a character called Lockjaw, and he's basically a giant dog who can teleport.
Yep.
And he's the Inhuman royal family dog, and he teleports them wherever they need to go. And you're like, that's totally comic book. It's silly and awesome at the same time. And someone leaked a set photo where they have the blue screen thing for Lockjaw. So Lockjaw is going to be a character, so it's great. They're really leaning into this, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool.
And my last bit of TV news before I get on to video games after is Gotham has cast its own version of Ra's al Ghul. Alexander Siddig, who Star Trek Deep Space Nine, you may have seen him as Dr. Julian Bashir. Mm-hmm. He's been in a bunch of other stuff besides that. Yep. He's going to be playing Ra's al Ghul. Yep, and it almost makes me want to watch Gotham again, because I'm sorry, I may be in the minority here. I hate Gotham. I think it's totally bastardized the Batman mythology. Uh-oh. I hate it. I hate it so much.
You won't watch it.
I watched season 1.
Nerd fury.
And I thought season 1 was okay. It was like decent enough to get me to watch season 2. Yeah. And I got halfway through season 2 and I'm like, I'm tapping out. I'm done.
Well, this Ra's al Ghul thing though is huge news. Anybody's been talking about it parts of Twitter. They're like, Matthew
Nabel on Arrow as Ra's al Ghul. Matthew Nabel is a great actor. And he definitely has that kind of, that regal presence.
Yeah.
And he's got that little bit of an accent that gives the hint that Ra's al Ghul has been around and traveled all these places. But I don't know, he just never really clicked, like, as far as how Ra's al Ghul should look, for me.
Yeah.
I think he definitely played the character well. His performance was great. But he was not who I would envision when I see Ra's al Ghul in my head. Alexander Siddig, on the other hand, totally looks the part of Ra's al Ghul. Because Ra's al Ghul isn't, he's not from, Boston, or, he's from, I think, the Middle East originally. And Alexander Siddig, I believe, is what is he, Egyptian, or?
Egyptian.
I'm sorry, he's probably not, but he's from that area of the world, really. And so he has that look of somebody who's this, because Ra's al Ghul's base is in the middle of the desert somewhere, like a castle. And this guy looks like he would be in there, and it's great. And it almost makes me want to start watching Gotham again, just to see how he does. Maybe I'll watch just one episode when they introduce him to see how his performance is. But I think it's great casting, but again, I just hate Gotham so much. I can't do it.
That's all right. That's okay. You got video game news now.
My last 2 bits of news, yes. Injustice 2. Again, I cannot wait for this game. And they said that they're going to go deep into the roster of more obscure DC characters.
Well, they have.
They have.
Up. Yeah.
We had Swamp Thing earlier from DC's mystical side of things, and now we got another mystical character in Dr. Fate.
Dr. Fate.
Who's going to be coming in here.
Yeah, we got him up.
Dr. Fate is basically, I hate to say this, think Doctor Strange for Marvel. He's DC's most powerful sorcerer. Ancient Egyptian helmet gives him his powers, Naboo, and he works to safeguard the Earth from mystical threats. And I think this is really cool. I thought most of the times when Doctor Strange pops up in comics, it leads to some really cool stuff. I thought the Earth 2 version of Doctor Strange was great. I didn't really like the Doctor Strange comic they did, but that's because they changed the character and they monkeyed with it a little bit, and I didn't really like it. But I think Doctor Strange as a character, or Dr. Fate. I've been saying Doctor Strange. Oh my god, it's Dr. Fate. Okay. Dr. Fate, I swear to God.
Just bought by the way, he just came walking in with a Doctor Strange Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's why it's in my head.
He's confused.
But I think Dr. Fate will certainly make for a really fun addition to the roster, and they really are. They're going into the more obscure characters that comic fans certainly know.
That's awesome.
But again, it's good that the casual audience is getting to expose to these more obscure characters in the bigger DC lore and mythology. And my last bit of video game news is Overwatch's next DLC character has been announced, is Orisa. Basically a cyborg centaur character, kind of, from Africa. And I haven't played as her yet. I think she's out in the PC version of the PTR.
Effie's robot, isn't
it?
Did you say that? Effie's?
I think so.
EFI? Or IFE?
But, again, Overwatch, I've loved every DLC character they've done so far. I think it's a video game that's just fun. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's like all these really wacky characters thrown into one thing. And it's cool because they have these characters from all over the world. They have Spain, Africa, Brazil, America, China, Japan. It's like everybody's getting characters. It's great. It's a lot of fun when you don't have characters that all look and sound the same.
So kind of a world game.
Yeah, it's kind of a game for everybody. And I think this is a lot of fun, which... the rumors were originally that the next DLC character was going to be Doomfist. And Terry Crews...
Yeah, we covered that. We thought that was going to be...
Terry Crews was in at the Overwatch headquarters, kind of teasing that maybe he was going to do the voice, which I think would be awesome. But it looks like before we get Doomfist, we're going to be getting Orisa. And I know she's out on the PTR and PC. I don't think she's coming out soon. I mean, soon-ish, obviously, if she's in the PTR right now. But I don't have an exact release date. But I think that's a lot of fun, and Overwatch is just something to have a lot of fun with. And I'll definitely be checking her out when she finally drops on the console version, because I have it on PS4.
Awesome.
But that is everything I got.
Well, I got some news. I was kind of laughing earlier. You couldn't see this. If we had the video, you would have kind of snickered, because while Tom was talking, I started scrolling through the screen because I was bringing up my thing. And if you looked at Tom's face, he kind of frowned. He paused for a second. He frowned. And it's because I brought up the headline here that we've got Indiana Jones 5 coming. And we talked about this earlier today, and this is the hottest news we got coming off our site today. People really want to see this. I mean, as far as this news, they're really reacting to it, and I don't think it's good. It doesn't look like it's positive. I am not excited about this at all. I'm very worried.
That fourth movie
was such a mess.
I told you this earlier, and I'm going to say it again. Yep. When I went into that fourth movie with you, we both saw it in theaters. I started off like this. Yeah! Your enthusiasm just gets sucked out of you the longer the movie went on.
What would you say then? Huh?
Yeah, and by the end of it, I was like, I think I actually said this in the movie, and what was that?
Yeah.
Aliens?
Yeah.
I mean,
that was awful. It was a mess, and it started out so well too.
That great opening part, and then it just got. You're like, okay, cool. He's gonna go hunting in South America for this mystical skull, and it's gonna be awesome. And then it was just like
maybe we'll see a glimpse of something in the end, but no, what the heck? And these tube arrow spitting. I don't know. Like they went back to movie 1 and they grabbed those natives and they stuck them in the middle of nowhere and they just appeared and had a quick fight and then ran away. I'm like, what were they doing there? What's that all about? And then I don't know. It's just a mess. We don't want to go into this. It's too stupid.
We don't want to talk about.
But for Indiana Jones, two of the movies are two of the best movies ever made. One is okay. Number two, and number 4 is everybody just got to forget about it. Nobody talks.
It's like Highlander 2. No one talks about it.
Awful. And so here comes 5, and there's no, it's just going to be Harrison Ford is back, Steven Spielberg will direct, Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall will produce. Although Kathleen Kennedy was on the last one too, which doesn't make me feel much better. I thought it was going to be exciting.
Well, who knows who was really
who knows who was
really
going on, because that was a mess. But I don't know what they're going to do. I mean,
Harrison Ford is not getting any younger.
Well, I don't want to beat up Harrison Ford on age, because I don't want to be. I like to see these guys get, like, we just saw what Patrick Stewart could do, but maybe Harrison Ford will do that.
This is an action movie.
This is an action movie.
Patrick Stewart had to sit in a chair.
One of the biggest problems with the last one is they handed it over to Harrison Ford's son, or what's his name,
Shia
LaBeouf, and it was just like, I don't know,
who was a very unlikable character.
Yeah, he's like, okay, whatever. And you really didn't like him. I didn't feel like any. I was like, you're kind of a punk, and you're kind of a smart ass, and you're kind of a hard, you're kind of a hothead. And I'm like, okay, I don't really like you that much. So we'll see what happens with this.
Hopefully he's like on vacation or something this movie, and
I don't think he'll be in this. I'd be very surprised. Well, I hope not. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. But we're not happy about this. That's kind of big Indiana Jones. So let us know what you think in the comments, because I don't think anybody else is happy about that. I think just let this thing die and let's move on. There's so many great things to make, and this is not needed right now. And the last thing I was going to throw in is I just finally found and started watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which for our anime fans out there, this by the way, it's on Hulu, and I just started, because I'm like 3 episodes in, and a lot of fun. JoJo's, if you want a good anime, really interesting story, very dark. It involves a 1800s family, a wealthy family, where somebody is injured seriously, and there's this mask involved, and he owes a life debt to the guy who saved him, but the guy who saved him really is a thug, and his son, the son of the guy who saved the very rich man, he's saved by a very poor man, and the very poor man is a drunken thug and a criminal. And so when he dies,
friends.
Yeah, he sends his son over to be, and the rich man adopts him, and rich man is JoJo's father, and now JoJo has this new brother, and the brother is, we find out almost immediately, is plotting to wipe out everybody and take over the family fortune. And so this, by episode 3, we've already seen a lot of stuff happen. So it's really good. I really enjoy it, and I can see why it went all the way. I think it was trending number 1 last night or the night before. It was huge. Whatever chart it was on, or whatever trend, it was Twitter or something again, and it was a huge, huge, huge amount. It was on Twitter. It did trend all the way up to top 10. But it was like number 1 on something, Crunchyroll or Anime, one of those. So anyway, we just want to let you know about JoJo's Big Adventure, and that wraps it up for the week. We've covered a lot of material this week and threw it all over the place. And we'll be coming back next week, I think, is Power Rangers 2 weeks or
2 weeks away?
2 weeks
Power
away.
Rangers.
So we'll cover some more
Kong
stuff.
will be this Friday.
Yeah, so we got more exciting stuff coming next week. In the meantime, if you want to support us, please do check us out on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Minds, minds.com. That's a new social media platform. We're also on iTunes if you search for Sci-Clops, and we are on YouTube. We have a Sci-Clops channel there, and we have, of course, Sci-Clops.com. So we'd love to have your support. Please do, if you are doing any shopping, please drop by the Sci-Clops site. You can shop at Amazon for free. Or not for free. I apologize. I said that wrong. Hold on. I said for free.
They won't
at no cost to you. At no cost
extra
to
cost,
you.
yes.
At no cost to you. If you just click through one of the Amazon sites.
That'd be kind of funny.
For free. Good Lord. I was thinking of something else. And people's eyes lighting up all over the place.
Yes!
Oh! No, if you buy anything on Amazon, and if you click through our site first, we get like a penny or two. And it just lets Amazon know that we're still, still an affiliate. And it helps us out. It doesn't... it doesn't give us tons of money, but it helps us out. So if you can do that, that would really help out a lot. It's a great way to support us, no cost to you. It only takes a moment longer, and you don't have to fill out or anything, or do anything, or write anything, or get any emails or anything.
Remember, we have to feed the pet dragons.
Yeah, we have to feed the pet dragon, and
Horses
we have to keep this thing going. And we got a couple surprises we're working on right now. Tom and I were discussing something we might start a separate off podcast soon, a side podcast that you're going to be doing. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more over the next couple of weeks and figure out if we can do it or not. So in the meantime, have a great week. Keep the geek.
Bye, guys.